You're listening to Perfectly Normal. This is a podcast where I bring you love, courage, and connection. I'm your host, Michelle. I'm a confidence and leadership coach who works with negative self-talkers to help them to discover inner strength and beauty by overcoming fear for judgment. I'm the founder of Elevate Life Coaching. It's a seminar and coaching company. Let's jump right into the show. Hi, everyone. Thank you for checking in this week. So what's going on this week? This week, I think what I want to talk about this week is anger. And by the way, this is our 31st episode of Perfectly Normal. I can't believe it's been 31 episodes all together already. And I was recording last week, and after I recorded and I was uploading to the podcast platform, and I realized, oh my gosh, it was 30 episodes, and how did I make it so far? Which means that's been 30 weeks of podcasting and recording, because I do these once a week. So it was really amazing how things just accumulate, and I don't even realize that how many episodes this Perfectly Normal has been already. And I remember I started this podcast right after I published my book, because in the book, a lot of what I said about in the book, it has to do with my past experience. It has to do with who I was. And so I wanted to create something that shows the world who I am now. So if you're interested in finding out more about who I am or who I was, go purchase the book. It's available on Amazon. It's called Perfectly Normal. If you type in Perfectly Normal and my name, first name and last name, michellekuei, the book will come up. Or if you visit my website, which some of you actually did, if you visit my website, you can actually purchase the book, and I will personally sign the book and mail that to you. So it becomes more personal. I love something that's more, has a better personal touch. So I'm kind of person who, order from Etsy, because they have these personal touch to a lot of elements that nowhere else can you find it. And personally, I'm an artist, so I definitely love to support artists, because it's a field where a lot of people get unnoticed, and these artists really need our supports right now. So if you ever consider ordering something like a planner or anything that you can think of, a bag or a purse or t-shirt, go check out Etsy.com, or just reach out to your neighborhood. There's a lot of people who's doing a lot of amazing things all over the world. So anyway, going back to the podcast, see how easily I get distracted and I start talking about things. And lately I've noticed I'm a talker, because I can spend a whole entire day talking. And sometimes I talk to myself. Like right now I'm talking to myself. I'm recording the podcast. You're listening, but I don't get to see you in front of my face. So it's like talking to myself. Sometimes I wonder, have I always been talking to myself? Which makes sense why I'm working with self-talkers, because I talk a lot. Instead of talking in my head, now I just talk out loud. Anyway, so today is the 31 episode. And today I want to talk about anger. What's been emerging for me. There's a common emerging theme every week. And this week, it's about anger. So I am involved with a couple of different committees, and I'm a board member of a nonprofit organization. And also I collaborated with my peer coaches. So we started a whole new company. And by the way, we're having a 2-day summit this week. I don't know if by the time I release this episode, if you're going to have enough time to sign up. But this weekend, on April 25th and 26th, we're having a 2-day summit where we're inviting basically the whole entire world, no matter which country you're from, where you're living right now. We want to invite you to come and join a conversation. And this is really in celebration. It was inspired by the UN 75. This year is UN 75th anniversary. So in celebrating that, UN had put out and encouraging people to do what's so-called a global consultation or global conversation. And through these conversations, there are basically three main questions that the UN is looking for. First of all, what kind of future do we want to create? And question number two is, how far are we from creating that future? And question number three is, what action do we need to take in order to help us getting closer to that future? And behind all this, the background is really focusing on the Sustainable Development Goals. So there are 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And it was agreed upon by multiple countries to create a world that is free of violence, free of injustice, and that it's a world that we promote gender equality, focuses on climate change, we focuses on sea and land, and basically we want to create a world where everyone can live on this planet. And that was put out, and the name is called Sustainable Development Goals. So if you type in the Google, you'll see these beautiful graphic, and 17 goals are what many countries and many organizations are working towards too. So each country had agreed upon working in one specific goal. So this year we celebrate the 75th anniversary of the UN. So my peer coach and I, we got inspired, and because I'm a board member for the nonprofit organization, I suggested it that maybe we can do this global conversation where we invite other people from all around the world to join in for a conversation. So that's going to take place on April 25th and 26th. And if there's enough time when I put out the episode, I would love to have you to come. And you can find information at world-withoutborders.com. So that is the official website my peer coach and I had came up with. Or you can find us on Facebook. It's probably actually easier to find us on Facebook than to look for our website, because I don't think the website is linked to the event page. So we're in the process of finishing up these 2-day summit, or leading to that 2-day summit. So there's a lot of work in place. There's a lot of meeting that we talked about, and how to put up these reports, and what to do, and these agendas for the event that's going to take place this weekend. So during these meetings, not just the one that I'm working with my peer coach, but also in these nonprofit organization meeting, or the other day I was talking to a corporate office, and they invited me before we had the lockdown to do a workshop, like a 2-day workshop. So I was providing them, this is a follow-up. I was giving them Energy Leadership Index assessment debrief. And that involves, sitting the team together, and we're talking about, how the team show up during meeting, and what needs to be improved, and what are some of the area of opportunity that we can focus on moving forward. And what's emerging is anger, because I don't know if you feel the same way too, but sometimes you walk into a group in a meeting, there's something that's just kind of off, right? It's either one person who's taking charge of the room, and there's that atmosphere just doesn't feel good. And that atmosphere usually feel anger, or you might be angry yourself. And, for the past couple of days, I kind of feel the anger within me. There's that feeling of, oh, here we go again. Like, what is it now? Like, what more do we need to do? Or like, why am I doing all this? And why is it not good enough? And how much more do you have to pick on, that kind of thing, that kind of attitude. So if that sounds familiar, welcome to the world. Right? It's perfectly normal to feel that way. So what do you do with anger? And at the end of the day, yesterday I was on a call, and one of my client was asking this question, and she said, what do you do when you have a lot of resentment to the event that had already passed? And this is in reference to typically a relationship. So when you're in a relationship and maybe the relationship didn't work out, and for whatever reason the other person somehow did something very wrong and very hurtful to you, and so you're angry. And that anger may appear sometimes be fear, because that person may have hurt you so bad that, just by thinking about that person walking down the street, you would have a lot of fear around that, just imagining it. So what do you do in those cases? That you need to let go of the past. Sure, like all your friends probably telling you that, oh, just get over it, it'll be better. You have to learn to forgive that person. You have to show your gratitude and just learn from the experience. I don't know about you, but when I was going through those moments, when I was having relationship issues where, I like that person doesn't like me, and we end up, not being together and we're just friends, and still there's a lot of emotion that I felt I was being hurt. And when I feel hurt, I was angry. And when people tell me that, oh, you just get over it, like, I get really angry when people tell me that. Like, you don't know who I am. You don't know what I'm experiencing. So how dare you telling me what to do? So what do? You can't just go on forever, right? And you probably don't want to go on carrying that resentment and carrying that anger all the time. And and you're probably thinking, there's probably time where you think, yeah, this has been 2 years, it's long enough, I really want to move on. How do you move on? So here's how you move on. Number one, remember I like a couple of episodes ago, I shared how you need to validate and acknowledge yourself. Like, this podcast is called Perfectly Normal, because it is perfectly normal for the situation that you're going through. It's perfectly understandable why you would be angry. I mean, if you think about it, if someone had grabbed something and come and hurt me, I have every right to be angry. So that in itself is perfectly understandable, is perfectly normal. And I think, many people they're already looking at it from the perspective where they already got over it. So we're looking back and then say, oh yeah, this too shall pass. But for the person who's in that experience, you have to give them the space. You have to allow them, to give them the time to heal that process. And that healing involves anger. It involves, sometimes you may not feel like getting up from your bed. You may not feel like waking up in the morning. That's completely perfect, completely normal. So my number one rule is, you never rush someone when they are not ready to move. And I think that's where a lot of people get stuck on, because they know they should be moving on. They know they should be grateful. They know they should thank for this experience. So they shoot themselves with a lot of things in order to feel that they need to move on. But what they don't recognize is, you haven't even released that energy, releasing that experience that was hurtful. That was a really hurtful moment. So allow yourself to be in that space. Allow yourself to take time to heal before you start thinking about releasing that energy. And so, in other words, you have to be kind to yourself, even when you're feeling angry. When you feel angry, no reason to be guilty. No reason to be guilty. And you don't have to rush through this process of healing. And that healing really involves releasing that energy. How do you release that energy, right? So there's a couple of things that you can do. So my judgment journal, which by the way, you can download now on elevatelifecoaching.org/download. You can download the whole entire 52 weeks of judgment journal for free. I had it on Amazon before, but I'm releasing it for free, especially during this time, because I think people are carrying a lot of judgment, and whether it's about themselves, about their future, or about the situation right now. So I'm actually releasing it so that it's completely free and you can download on my website. Again, it's elevatelifecoaching.org/download. And you'll be able to download the whole entire 52 weeks journal. And in the journal, I have spreadsheets, or it has questions, empowering questions that tap into how you view the situation. So how do you release the anger? Part of it is about acceptance, accepting the situation where you are now, accepting this is how you're feeling, accepting and acknowledging this is how you feel. And to take it a step further, it's about reframing how we see the situation, reframing how you view that circumstances. So if it's about a relationship that had passed, and there are certain things that in that relationship that you were stuck on, and that you have thoughts around those moments, write those down and look at what the internal message is. Like, what are you trying to tell yourself? What are you sending? What kind of message are you sending to yourself in those moments when you have those feelings, when you have those thoughts? Write that down in the judgment journal. And the judgment journal have questions to ask you to come up with 2 to 3 different ways of looking at it. So it could be like, so if I'm applying for a job right now, and my judgment says, I can't apply this job because I don't fit in their company. Why do I don't fit? Maybe I'm not smart enough. Okay, so yeah, because that's a very common thing that people would say about themselves. I'm not smart enough. Oh, you're a doctor. You're smarter. And so that internal message is about I'm not smart enough. So let's say, for example, that judgment is I'm not smart enough. So in the judgment journal, I want you to list 3 other ways of you look at that situation. Is it you truly that you're not smart enough, or are you just don't have the skill yet? The skills we can develop, we can learn, we can grow. Are you, maybe the other way to look at it is, maybe they are not hiring right now. It has nothing to do with you personally. It's just the fact that they're not hiring right now. And the other perspective that perhaps you can look at it is, well, I'm not ready to apply. How about that? I'm not ready to apply. So 1 judgment, 3 perspectives, and you get to choose which perspective you want to believe, which feels more right to you in that moment, which one is more true right now. And I think it's important to focus our vision on now. What had passed had led you here, but that's not the factor that would determine where you want to go. So if you keep holding on to that past experience and being angry and refusing to release those perceptions, those views that no longer serves you, then every action that you take right now is going to cost you tomorrow. So if you think about that, by holding on to your past experience, it's going to limit the way that you see things, the way that you look at opportunity. It's going to limit your view right now if you keep holding on to it. If you were to release it, you're no longer being limited by the view, by the belief, by the assumption that you carry in your life. Then every action that you do now will determine what your future will look like. Make sense? I mean, it does to me. If we keep doing something repeatedly, if we keep holding on to that anger and we're refusing to accept to acknowledge, to validate, and releasing that anger, then we're just going to be angry all the time in the future. So there's something that I've learned through my journey is that I get angry. Yes, absolutely. I get angry. And when I get angry, oh, you don't want to see me being angry. I really release that anger energy quite a lot. So I release that anger, but the next day it's gone. Like I don't hold on to my anger at all because it's not a very pleasant feeling. But I think the most important skills I want you to walk away with from this episode is that understand that what you're feeling right now, whether it's anger, whether it's grief, or whether it's, anything negatively, those are moments where you need to acknowledge yourself that it is perfectly normal what you're feeling, looking at your situation for the facts, not the stories around it. And when you do that, you're looking at the facts, then you allow yourself and you're being more kind to yourself and thinking that, yeah, this is normal how I feel this way. It's understandable. Now what do I do? Right? So when you create that space, when you create that pause before you act on it, then what you do is you're actually giving yourself enough time, enough space, enough, love to think about what next step would be. And when we're not focusing on the emotion, then we start to see more options that are available to us. And those options are always available to us. So that is this week's episode. And if you're interested to find out more about the energy leadership, you can definitely look for me on my website at elevatelifecoaching.org/energy leadership, or you can send me an email at michellekuei@gmail.com. And I look forward to our next episode. Hey, thanks for joining me this week on another episode of Perfectly Normal. Make sure to visit my website at elevatelifecoaching.org. And if you found value in this show, I would appreciate a rating on iTunes and Spotify. Or you can simply tell a friend about this show. That would really help me too. This podcast is made possible by listeners like you. If you'd like to become a Patreon to the show, you can visit patreon.com/michellekuei. Thank you for your support, and be sure to tune in next week for our next episode.